What is up, sports fans? Thanks for tuning in. My name is Fry, and I'm the host of the Sports by Fry YouTube channel. Today's episode, I'm going to be focusing on all things AFL. Round 2's just unfolded. There's a couple of team results and things like that are a little bit unique, a little bit surprising. Didn't really expect North to win by 50 over St Kilda, but I'm going to be talking mainly about AFL Fantasy today and the scores that kind of fluctuated throughout the week. There was another big score from Tom Mitchell, of course. It's becoming a weekly factor now that Titch is going to go for 120, 130, but I'm going to break down some of the other scores as well, talk about how some of the players underperformed, look at some trade targets for this week, and then look ahead to round 3 as well. This week, as I'm doing the video, I'm going to try and interactively show you guys my team. So I had a pretty solid week this week, actually. I wasn't too disappointed. I scored 21-15, I think, from memory. So it's a pretty good score considering there was a lot of carnage and not many people had massive scores. There wasn't a lot of 120s and 130s. Well, there's a few, but yeah, a lot of those premium guys kind of fell a little bit short of the ton. So yeah, I'm going to show you guys what my team looks like, talk about my trades specifically, and then, yeah, like I said, preview round 3. So as I mentioned off the top, I actually had a pretty good week this week. I was 4,185th in the AFL world for round 2. So yeah, I'll take that. If I could keep putting up numbers like that, then my ranking will climb. I'm sitting just outside the top 10,000 or 11,000 right now. But yeah, 2,115 this week. Pretty solid. I'll take that. I know a lot of people that were in the low 2s and struggled to score, massive. So yeah, I'll take 2,115. I didn't really have a lot of players go massive. Let me rephrase that. I had some players go massive, but I didn't have a lot of my premium guys who were usually good for 100 or 110. I didn't really have a lot of them step up. So let's break down my team line by line. Defense, I really wish I took Rory Laird's vice-captain score on Thursday night. I had him for 144. Although, in saying that, I did have Tom Mitchell as my captain, so I would have only benefited by about 4 points. But yeah, kudos to Rory Laird. Jake Lloyd and Michael Hibberd didn't really perform for me. Hibberd's gone this week for me. I gave him a second chance. Understood, scoring low against the Cats, but no. Against Cats, but not against the Lions. Not good enough. Finlayson on my ground, that was a massive tick. 90 points. If you don't have him, get him in your team. Tom Doedee, probably outperforming what we thought he'd do. We thought he'd be good for 60, 65, which it might even out. He might have a couple of 50s, whatever, like Sammy Murray did this week, who's also on my ground. But yeah, Doedee's one that I think you can safely pencil in on your ground for at least the next couple of weeks. He looks really good for the Crows, so I like the looks of him. I traded in Zach Guthrie this week for Aaron Norton. Aaron Norton's job security is pretty good with the Dogs, but yeah, I wanted to chase Guthrie. I think he can score a bit higher. So considering I've got him and Alex Pearce on my bench as my non-playing guys, if they can keep growing in money, I think chasing Guthrie probably was an all-right move. Looking at my midfielders, pretty good. Obviously, I got Tom Mitchell. He had a massive 137, so that was doubled because he was my skipper. Josh Kelly had 118. Take that. Zach Merritt did not perform. 78, so he's another one that's definitely on the chopping block. He's going to bleed cash. He's got the highest break-even of every player in the competition heading into round 3, so he's probably gone for me this week. Lukey Parker was solid. Lockie Neal was solid. Brayshaw, I tried to play a little bit risky and put Brayshaw on my ground over Dom Barry. I thought that Brayshaw might score a little bit better, but they both scored exactly the same, so, I didn't really come out any better from that. Tim Kelly, he's probably the must-have player in the comp at the moment. 115, he looked, poised against the Hawks. He was invincible. So him and Nicky Holman, averaging 87. You could happily take those two on your ground. And then I've got Banfield and Barry as my emergencies. I'll take 60 to 70 from both of them. Well done, boys. Sauce Jacobs and Maxi Gawn were fine. They balanced out to score me pretty much bang on 200. So if I can get 100 from each of my ruckmen on average each week, I'll take that. That's definitely a win, a tick. I had Timmy English on my bench, so he's still generating money, albeit a bit slowly. He only scored 35 this week, but, it doesn't really faze me. He's there just to earn me money. I don't want to be in a situation where he's playing. So last year I had Sean Darcy on my ruck bench and thought that he wouldn't play a factor. But down the stretch, he actually helped me. But yeah, I don't really want my R3 or 4 to be an important piece of my season. So looking at my last line, my forwards was overall pretty disappointing. I mean, I absolutely scored having Liam Ryan on the ground. I don't think he'll score 90 every week. He'll probably be hovering around the 60s, but kicked 3 goals, 3 against the Dogs was very lively, so he definitely is capable of a couple of more performances like that before the year's out. So I started him over Venables and Langdon. That was a massive tick, but both those guys, again, generated me some money on my bench, so I'm happy with that. Billings kind of failed for me with 71. Understand that North, touched them up, so St Kilda weren't in a good spot to score, but yeah, 71's a bit disappointing. Similar with Heaney's 88. He was my second forward, but, it's not the end of the world. I'll take 88 over the likes of 50 or 40, which, touch wood, I haven't copped any really bad scores from anyone, apart from Merritt last week getting a head knock. So, yeah, fingers crossed I can keep dodging those bullets. Petrarca was fine for 75. Christensen was good for 88. He's someone that I probably want to move sooner rather than later and might come into my trade calculations this week if I can maybe downgrade the likes of Merritt or Michael Hibberd and then throw some money on top of Christensen to turn him into Tim Taranto. That might be a move. And then Fritsch rounded out my ground with a 60. So, like I said, 2-1-1-5, I'll definitely take that. Not bad from the large fries and Coke. Pretty solid round 2. So that's how my team kind of unfolded in round 2. Solid performance. Fingers crossed I can continue to keep trending upwards in round 3. I'm going to talk about some of the guys who shone this week. My plus 3s for the week. The video and podcast that I'm doing is going to be available kind of in the form of an article as well on sportsbyfry.com. So if you want to read all the bits and pieces that I'm going to kind of talk about a little bit today, then you can definitely check that out. That'll be live by the time these videos are up. So hit up sportsbyfry.com to give that round 2 wrap up a read. But yeah, let's look at some of the guys who shone this week. So my first guy that I had in my plus 3 was Rory Laird. His 141 was one of the top scores of the comp. He had 124 last week. He's an absolute gun. If you don't have him in your side, it's going to be tough to try and find a way to get him in. But yeah, he just is at the peak of his powers, rebounding the footy, pushing up through the midfield. Rory Laird is a gun, absolute gun. So tick, well done Rory Laird. The second guy I want to talk about is Gary Ablett. I think if Tom Mitchell wasn't playing as good as he was, everyone would be going nuts over Gary at the moment. He nearly hit 120 last week, and a lot of people asked me questions about whether they should get him or not, and I was like, maybe we need to see one more week, see how he looks alongside Danger. Dangerfield and Selwood had no impact on his score. He scored 138, was racking up possessions at will. He looks to be back at the peak of his powers. Put those injuries behind him that he had at the Suns, so Gary Ablett is a must-have as well. He's pretty expensive now. He comes at a hefty price, almost at 850 grams, so you're going to have to do some serious juggling if you want to get him in your team, but he's worth every penny. Last week, I wrote my round 1 wrap, and Tim Kelly featured in the plus 3s, and I don't like to put guys in there back-to-back weeks, but after what Tim Kelly did against Hawthorn, he deserves a spot in the plus 3. So he was my third and final guy. Had 115 points, was pretty unstoppable. He had 27 touches. I think he kicked a snag as well. He's definitely locked a spot into that Geelong 22. The health of some of Geelong's midfielders is a little bit questionable. So getting Kelly's that mature age body is probably a smart move from the Cats. Duncan wasn't playing, which is probably why Kelly performed a little bit better than the 80 he scored in round 1. Scooter Selwood, Joel Selwood, Gary, if he gets a little bit hurt, and Danger sometimes gets suspended. He's played tons of games. Anyway, what I'm saying is, if there's one of those guys that misses for Geelong, then Tim Kelly just slots into that role, and it could potentially see us add another 25 to 30 points on his scores. So he's probably the guy that you must have throughout the whole competition at the moment. If you don't have him, then he's a guy that you can really trade in. Obviously, you'd love to have Tom Mitchell and those top guys, but considering where Kelly's priced at and his role, I think that he is a must-have. If there's one guy that I recommend getting this week, it's Tim Kelly, 100%. Now you watch, he'll go out and score 50 and I'll get murdered on Twitter now that I've pumped him up. Enough of the positives, let's look at some of the negatives. So my negative 3s this week. First one goes out to Zach Merritt. In the next couple of rounds, I'm going to try to not find guys who are on my team, but it just so happened that this week a lot of the popular picks that I have on my team were ones that scored well or bad. So Zach Merritt, 78 is not good enough. I actually watched the whole Freo Dons game and he was getting tagged a little bit by Bailey Banfield and he had a really solid first half. It was looking like he was on track for a ton, which he'd take, but he just looked lost in the second half. Part of it, I think, was due to Essendon just playing bad. I don't know off the top of my head how all the Essendon players scored overall, but I know that Freo kind of locked down in the second half, and it showed in the result of the game. But yeah, they've got the Bulldogs this week back at home, and we saw what the Eagles did. We saw what the Giants did in week 1. So yeah, it's tough whether trading Zach Merritt is a good idea or not, but regardless of whether you're moving him or not, he gets my first -3 this week. Piss poor effort. Second guy is Jack Billings. Like I said, he scored 71. Not really good enough considering you're playing North Melbourne. I know that, against North, if you're going to get, against any team, if you're going to lose by 50 plus, it's going to be hard for you to score. But for Jack Billings to not register a shot on goal and just, like Blake Acres managed to score 92, why couldn't you just find another 20 points, Billings? That would have been perfect. They play the Crows this week as well, so life's probably not going to get a hell of a lot easier, but fingers crossed he bounces back. The third and final -3 goes to none other than Sam Menegola. I'm whinging about Jack Billings' 70, but God, I would have been spewing if I had Menegola's 50 on my ground. He's kind of the guy who's probably going to suffer from Ablett coming into that team and Tim Kelly's growth as well. So yeah, he scored 50 on the weekend. I think he failed to top 70 last week. He's a guy that if you've got him in your team, you just got to get rid of him. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a failed experiment. He could bounce back and be better in the latter half of the year, but he's just bleeding cash right now. There's better options as well, considering where Menegola's priced at and who's around in the forward line. He's priced at just over 650 grand at the moment, so you could flip him to the likes of Devon Smith, Blakey Acres, like I mentioned earlier, Christian Petracca, or if you've got a little bit of coin in the bank, you can even turn him into Buddy or Heaney or something like that. So yeah, Menegola, gotta go. Some quick fire trade thoughts. Guys you should look to maybe get in this week. Guys like Bryce Gibbs, like I mentioned, Gary Ablett, Jack Stevens, another one as well you could keep your eye on. All three of them are good options. I'm really excited about Robbie Gray. He looked awesome in Port Adelaide's game against the Swans in his return to action. Had 119, so he's only a forward, but he's still priced under 600 grand. He could be a perfect almost sideways trade from Menegola. Get Robbie Gray in. He'd be a nice have. There's a few unique guys you could maybe chase. Michael Walters had another great game. Jaron Geary in defence, he might be one that I look at this week. I mean, he's the captain of St Kilda, so he's not going to get dropped. Doesn't have the greatest history for scoring big, but he's top 90 in both his games. He's fine. Blake Acres, like I've mentioned a couple of times throughout the pre-season and already, I'm really bullish on, so he's another upgrade target. I think the pick of the bunch, though, of guys you need to trade in this week, without Kelly, obviously, that I've talked about at length, is probably Tim Taranto. He's still priced under 500 grand. Had 90 again this week. He looks like he's cemented himself into that GWS midfield. Even if he does float through the forward line, the amount of times that the balls are up there, I think, yeah, he'll really benefit this year. I see him maybe averaging around the 90 mark. I don't think he'll keep performing and averaging like triple figures, but he's off to a hot start, and if the Giants can keep this up, then there's no reason why he can't keep scoring big. Guys you want to get rid of, guys on the outs, Michael Hibberd, maybe Zach Merritt. I've talked a little bit about him already, so, pick your poison. But yeah, Hibberd, got to go. He isn't marking the ball a lot like he has done in the past. He's kind of made a bit of a career being that mark, kick, rebound defender, but, he doesn't really warrant a spot in my team and shouldn't really warrant a spot in most of your teams. He could bounce back a bit and probably average in the low 90s, maybe high 80s, but considering he's failed to top 70, like I said, I gave him a pass against Geelong, but against Brisbane's not good enough. So see you later, Hibbo. The guy that you should probably get rid of this week, if you did hold him through his rubbish first performance, is Tom Rockcliffe. Don't get me wrong, he will be one of the players to target in the second half of the year after Port Adelaide have their bye. He could be a perfect guy to help nurse you through those later rounds, but he's not tackling, he's not racking up a lot of the footy. He's just flat out playing really bad. From an AFL Fantasy perspective, he might be playing his role for the power, but yeah, his bung shoulder still scares me. He doesn't seem like he's got that same ferocity at the footy, so you need to get rid of him. Taylor Adams is probably another premium guy that's underperforming through the first 2 weeks. 70 odd the first week, 80 odd the second week. It's not good enough for someone of his price tag, so flick those two guys out of your side if you still have them. If you do have any other holes in your rookies, if you're still holding Cam Rayner or Paddy Dow, who both had pretty miserable games again in round 2, then you might be able to swap them around. If you've got Paddy Dow in your midfield, then changing him to Don Barry or Tim Kelly in a perfect world would be an ideal get. In the forward line, there's not as many options, but I've been pretty lucky. I've hit on most of my rookies, and there's plenty to choose from. So you could turn Rayner into the likes of Fritsch or Liam Ryan. There might even be a couple of other guys floating through if they're named this week. So there's lots of options. But yeah, I think try and patch up those rookies if your trades are the rest of your team's pretty set by getting rid of Rayner and Paddy Dow. Looking ahead to next week, Matty Crouch is probably the biggest guy who'll miss. He did his hamstring, stranded in the low 30s against the Tigers, so he's definitely a trade-out player. He will probably miss, I don't know the full report, but probably miss a lengthy amount of time, so there's no point holding on to him. Trade. There still hasn't been a ton of news released as of yet about all the injuries and the severity of them. I know that there was a couple of guys that went down that might hurt your draft leagues a little bit, but guys like Matty Cruiser, Mitch Duncan and Toby Green, who were all laid outs for their games. There's probably a couple of people who have them in Classic as well, so just monitor the stories around them. By all reports, the 3 of them should be fine for round 3, but yeah, just proceed a little bit with caution. Keep them, in your back of your mind when you're considering your trades. I think out of the 3, Cruiser's probably the one that might be the biggest risk for round 3. He hurt himself in round 1, so it's not surprising he didn't get up last week, but he might be okay now. But yeah, watch the storylines around those 3 guys. There's a few other players, like I said, that we don't really have the full injury scoop on, but judging on what we do know and how teams panned out this week, my trades are probably looking like I'm going to get Michael Hibberd out. I don't have a huge amount of cash behind me, so I can't go straight to Cade Simpson. And I'm also thinking that if I downgrade, I might be able to trade Zach Merritt to someone else. I might be able to get Gary Ablett, or I might be able to trade him to Lockie Whitfield and then downgrade Hibbo and keep a bit of cash. I've got a bit of flexibility, a couple of options, but I think Hibbert and Merritt are the 2 guys that'll go for me this week. I can definitely justify keeping Zach Merritt. He should go big against the Bulldogs, but he's going to just start losing me money. And yeah, it's a very tricky position to be in. I think that if I kept Zach Merritt this week and he had another bad game, then I'm kind of stuck with him. His price would be too low. It'd be, you'd have to ride it out. But yeah, I did get him for a reason. And like I always say, you're backing your premiums after 1 or 2 bad performances. So it's almost at a toss of a coin what I do about Zach Merritt. But considering his price at the moment, there's a lot of options that I could do. And yeah, it's going to be tough to try and keep him. But wait till later in the week and we'll know a little bit more. But at this stage, Zerrett and Hibbo will be the 2 that go from the large fries and Coke. Also, thank God there's no Thursday night game this week. So we go back to normality. Teams come out Thursday. Next game starts on Friday. So we won't have to worry about any rolling lockouts or anything like that. So yeah, watch the team announcements this week. See if there's any new guys. See who gets dropped. That might change your trade plans a little bit. But I think we're in for another pretty similar team selections as last round. And what I mean by that is we'll probably dodge a lot of bullets. I don't think there'll be any huge names that are going to miss. Might be a few, like I said, Crouch and those injuries. Might see some guys dropped, but yeah, I think we're in for a pretty standard, fingers crossed, team selection night on Thursday. Speaking of Thursday, I'll be doing my piece for the Dream Team Talk boys, doing a weekly feature now Thursday. We usually come out around Thursday morning, midday Thursday, Australian time. So yeah, you can check that out. I try to target specific players who are playing well that are under-owned, pods as we call them, players of difference. So yeah, check out Fry's Forgotten Few. That'll be up Thursday. I said on the Sunday sit down with Jake that I didn't have a ton planned for this week. Still similar in that boat. I've got a bit of work coming up, so there'll probably only be 1 video / podcast during the week. I might try and do another one Friday or Saturday, but yeah, there'll be one during the week. Probably a bit of a mixed bag, touching in on some of the NBA stories, baseball, If there's any footy news, I might talk about that. But yeah, check that out. Make sure you stay tuned for that episode that will come out later in this week. Quick shout out to Michael Clark. His birthday today. Loved watching Clarkie play, and considering how bad the Australian cricket team's doing right now off the field, I always like to think back to the glory days when Michael Clark was a star. So happy birthday, Clarkie. Also, shout out goes to Jake, the co-host of the Sunday Sit Down with me. It's his birthday tomorrow, our time. But technically, if you're back in Australia watching this, it'll be Jake's birthday. So make sure you wish him a happy birthday. And that's pretty much it for another Sports by Fry episode. Thanks for listening, watching. Hit up sportsbyfry.com to check out all my pieces as they come out throughout the next week. National title game tonight. Villanova versus Michigan. So I'm all in on the Wildcats. Should be a good game though, so it could go either way. I'll be definitely watching that. Go Villanova. Like I said, thanks for watching, listening. Until next time, peace.